And our restreamer says that we are live.
Alright, I will give that a few seconds then, since Twitch then will take a bit more time yet to kick in. Ah, I managed to not use any meter in that round. Didn't even think of it. Alright. Alright, good evening everyone. This is Kanzuki Dynasty, and Rillian is here as well, and I am spending some time in the student lounge trying to put into practice some of what we were going through on our Monday stream about how to learn matchups. Here I have a Super Gold Ken who is presently kicking my ass in an appropriate fashion, and so I'm going to start to be trying to figure out what exactly to be doing with him. So far he seems very different from the Kens I experienced in Bronze. He is much more patient. He's willing to move around and wait. He isn't as random or perhaps volatile. And so he might stick around and we can start to work on dissecting this. Aha! And we have a Ryu as well. I do not recognize either of those countries, though.
Fortunately, it does give you the most basic matchup that most of us need to understand.
Yes.
So rather than you fighting, you can watch some of the behaviors that they have through their battle and see if you can learn anything about it. The only thing I can note to you so far is that, similar to what I was discussing with Just Fine this morning, there is a specific way that most characters need to react to blocking a fireball that came from a cancelled normal. In Karin's case, she is also quite capable of using the same overall tactic, and that is to hit her crouching medium kick in most cases, but a better way to do it might be to hit standing medium kick, and from there attempt to control the situation directly after the jump in.
I see.
Because while her standing medium kick is 8 frames and her Ryukens are only -6, there is not really a lot the opponent can do, and higher level people are very unlikely to do those things.
I see. And it does, -6 and 8 does come out to 2, which does not allow for a great deal to happen. They basically have to block, anything else would, except maybe a backdash, would either get counter-hit, or would need to be invincible or some similar.
Yes.
So the first thing I suppose I immediately fear is Shoryukens, but actually, because of the changes to invincibility, it would need to be an EX one. So as a base matter, that's not necessarily something to be worried about. Although it will require consideration later on. Anyway, watching what we have here. As I said, he is very different from the Bronze Kens I face. He seems to be, in part, just doing a little bit of basic poking and then waiting for Try Stop Me, our Ryu here, to make mistakes in certain kinds and punishing that. But actually this implies that I need to look a little closer at the setups he would be using. Because I doubt he's simply waiting for mistakes at his level.
No, probably not. Gold, this particular level of gold is not a place where people normally are just flatly waiting for mistakes. They're trying to force some sort of error most of the time.
They're trying to make you make mistakes. Or at least put you into an annoying situation for yourself. So let's see here.
But either way, it does give you an option to look at and try to understand what defensive Ken playstyle looks like. Because even if that's not actually exactly what they're doing, starting from that point is probably the best thing you can do for yourself.
Sure. Fair enough.
Round 4. Fight.
So let's see here. His opening was stand still. That was unexpected, actually. Possibly one too many dashes, or I'm not sure what he was up to.
It's very likely that it was one too many dashes.
Yes.
As you know, it's not exactly easy to make
Yeah.
sure you never overshoot the buffer.
It's true. Oops. No.
Ken wins.
So, from my own side, and something as well that I noticed in the previous match I had with him while the stream was getting set up, is that, well, unsurprisingly, he blocks a lot and blocks most of the stuff that I would try to get at him with.
Let's do this.
I noticed during the Ryu match that he likes to be in when he approaches directly, I mean, he likes to be in a particular very close, not quite absolute minimum range, but somewhat just like half step out from there position, and I'm not necessarily sure what he is aiming for from there. But
Round 1. Fight.
as for me, walk forward overhead has worked a few times, but I don't expect it to keep working for very long. Oops, that was not correct.
Now you realize that they do have the tendency to try to clip legs with sweep. This is a good tactic against people who are not paying a lot of attention to their own spacing.
Uh-huh.
And
Alright.
therefore can him push you out. But what you definitely need the most here is that awareness that after the cancelled Hadouken you should hit stand medium kick. Because hitting crouching medium kick tempts you in particular into cancelling from it.
Yes.
And then you end up in trouble.
Yes. As you see there, actually. Oops.
So while he's doing other things and you have to worry about other things, the thing that is probably the quickest way to change the match between you and this particular Ken is to watch out for that Hadouken spacing.
Okay.
And of course to not whiff your normals as much.
Sure. Alright then.
Round 3.
Well, I can be a little more cautious, conservative about that.
The second thing to realize is that no matter how ready he is, you do have a good reason to Mayoke him after certain interactions. This was something we mentioned in your Ken matchup before. Once Ken pushes you out, you have basically the choice of either hitting stand medium kick or Mayoke him. If you
Right.
feel comfortable with the stand medium kick, hit it. If you don't feel comfortable, what normally happens is that you end up blocking for too long. But you should just Mayoke at that moment.
Yes,
Because
probably.
it will move you out of the way. And moving you out of the way of any particular potential jump is probably a large part of what should happen.
Yes, in fact, this was something that I put into practice a slight amount earlier in the... well, during the setup, more or less. So, I need to watch carefully to learn where precisely he is preferring to hit his Hadokens from, because I need to predict those to some degree, just to get myself ready for them mentally a little bit.
Go time. Let's do this. Round one. Fight.
Uh-oh. Alright, I need to be careful that when I am doing the Mayokens on my side.
Basically, your first aim should be to walk forward. As soon as you don't feel comfortable walking forward, then you should be able to move forward.
Yes.
If
That
walking
seems to be
feels fine,
correct.
just walk.
Very nice. So yes.
Round two. Fight.
And I can tell you what I believe is his first adaptation. And
Okay.
I'll let you know as soon as I see some more Mayokens get blocked,
Okay.
whether or not he has truly adapted. But I'd expect that he will start to dash after the Mayoken.
Okay. Alright.
So far he's proven me wrong. There has been no dashing after the Mayoken. There has been crouching medium punch into Hadouken, which is good because it technically means that you can use one thing that you are supposed to do to set up the situation of the other thing you are supposed to do. Very nice of them.
Ah, there we go. That cross up, but that just the right range to cause me trouble there. I need to be out of the corner, and he lets me with the EX reversal. So far, he's not pressed on that.
So generally, this sort of simple style is actually really good when the opponent doesn't have good jump-in defense. And it's a good
Yes.
place to get started when it's definitely a heavy push on their mental resources to keep it up.
I see. Yes, and that's somewhat working. I'm not known for my jump-in defenses. And the spacings and timings he uses prevents me from using the basically Mayoken respacing technique that I can use against lower level Kens in bronze in my area generally.
So what you're gaining now is very basic matchup experience. It is the first two parts of Karin versus Ken. You can even just think of them discussing it. Ken will attempt to position himself to throw Hadoukens and jump, knowing that Karin, her weakness is that if she is trying to play footsies only, she can't react to a Hadouken at a certain range, and she doesn't have the strongest anti-airs. Therefore, your aim is to do exactly the opposite of that, to make sure that when he jumps, you are not in that position, and that after the Hadouken, especially the ones that happen on his reflex, that you have hit the correct button. And that's it. That's a whole game for a while. When you both have gotten more used to each other, there can be more to it, but for now, that's basically the focus.
Yes.
Because you will notice that other interactions, and it's super important to get used to this, other interactions don't necessarily result in a lot of damage happening.
Yes, that's something that I don't necessarily track quite the to the degree that I possibly should when I'm fighting a match, because I am basically playing primarily just straight up positionally, and
At that range, it's actually okay to hit the medium punch, because, again, Hadoukens are in fact punishable at minimum range. It's just that normally no one does that.
Sure. Huh. Not quite far enough out, I don't think, for the Mayoken there. So I was in an awkward position where I didn't want to walk, but I couldn't Mayoken.
That's partially not true. The first thing is that you got trapped in the corner. The second thing is that your opponent knew that you wanted to Mayoken out of the corner and therefore did a Shoryuken. It's not exactly the normal response for people to have.
I see.
But you see, every time he throws a Hadouken at you, and you fail to hit the standing moving kick after it,
yes,
he will keep hitting more buttons and put you under more pressure.
Yes. Fairly, it's a little bit of a hard for me to seemingly to keep my focus in exactly the right place for that. I suspect, however, that is a matter of practice and watching where it does go instead.
However, in the end, to get really good at these games, you do need a certain set of particular type of discipline, which is why I will probably start making quote-unquote katas available. The problem is I don't really want to do it because they take a lot of testing, and I don't really want to be spreading misinformation on the internet.
Yes, that's always something regrettable when it does happen.
But once I have tested certain ones, I will definitely try to make them available. If the lounge does not go too well, or this person is not able to stay for much longer and therefore help be your kata practice partner, it isn't too hard to create that scenario on Ryubot if Ryubot is in his correct form at the moment.
Alright, I don't think that I necessarily... I don't know, actually. I might have him on my account.
But on the other hand, it's the simple reason is because it doesn't help too much in a single day to... If you're planning to learn one matchup, you shouldn't like mix and match a lot of people. Which is why it's so unfortunate when battle lounges don't last very long, because it's too hard to get the information you need from people in that case.
Alright. Unfortunately, it does not work on hit. Which makes enough sense, yes.
Round 2. Fight.
I'll know that isn't specifically that it doesn't work on hit. It's mostly that your opponent has figured out that you do it. The obvious next thing is to do it really well and then stop doing it consistently. Because right now, they are noticing that in a certain situation, you always do it. And this is actually something high-level players use to get through pools against lower-level players, etc. It's not really that they consider lower-level players to be terrible. It's that they recognize that lower-level players have weaknesses in terms of what they are able to react to. And due to the after-image effect, when you find yourself able to react to something, you're very likely to keep trying, even if it's not the best idea to always react.
Alright, there we go. Yes. And the after-image effect is fundamentally, I think, almost just unbalancing that between options one can and cannot handle as easily.
Yes. And it can be a real problem because a player who is able to identify, okay, you can stop this version of my combo, but not this other version. So they do the same. They do what appears to be the same thing.
But it ends up not being.
You try to stop one of them and fail, bonus to them, and you stop the other, but then if they were safe, they just do whatever beats your option.
Yes.
Round 4. Fight.
Now you do have a strong mix-up option in here based on when you happen to. Many players react to whether or not your character has done a move and changed color, more or less. They're not really looking to see which move you did, they're just seeing that, oh, an ES move is done, and
Sure.
I'm going to do this in response to that ES move. When you're playing Karin in particular spaces, you can use either ES Mujin Kyaku or ES Seppo to achieve this.
Yes.
You lose.
8 frames and 7 frames on the Tenko version for the startup. But more so it's just not necessarily the version of it they're expecting. Or depending what I set them up for.
Because ES Mujin Kyaku, the response is to block it, mostly.
Yes.
ES Seppo, technically they should do something about it.
Sure. I am probably throwable through the whole of it, for instance. But yes, alright.
Round 1. Fight.
Lots of trading here, more than I'm used to normally. Uh-oh.
Higher level players have better concepts of when buttons can be hit, and a lot of the things you would have gotten as advantage hits become trades.
I see. Alright then, that makes sense.
Round 2. Fight.
Not what I wanted to do there anyway. Oh, and there was a chance to take care of that properly. Alright. Now I find myself losing focus a little bit as a result of that set of interchanges and not having an option in mind for what to do when I get myself into that position. He has started using neutral jumps.
To deal with Maoken, yes.
And it works. Presumably
But
why he does
obviously
it.
the question is, why does it work, and what can you do about it? But you did get to the next part. Basically, you have achieved getting to the next stage. And the neutral jump can't be done on response to the Maoken and still harm you. There is only reactively believing that the Maoken will come.
Yes.
So.
Yes, so if he reads my Maoken, at which point I suppose I can mix it up with, I think it would need to be EX Tenko, if I was going to try a Tenko-based response to that.
Why is that?
I feel like Just Frame Standard Tenko will not travel far enough, and for some reason I didn't even consider Just Long Frame Tenko. I don't know how to say that.
No,
Frame
it's worth
4
a try.
Tenko or whatever.
The key
So,
problem here
frame
is
4
that
Tenko might be
it adds
testable.
a difficulty tier to what you're doing.
Indeed.
And
And it's a
that
predictive matter
is-
as well.
that is part of why when you are learning fighting games in a strong fighting game environment where someone is helping you out or telling you what to do or just doing what this player is doing and being willing to play you even though your rank is so different, you get a lot more time to recognize where your actual inability is, where your limits are, rather
Yes.
than, oh, I'm getting bodied because I can't stop this thing.
Round 1.
Sure. Right, because I have time to adapt to any specific this thing. Or I can just dash forward and heavy punch. And that should defeat him
That's possible.
in a much nicer way. I think I would prefer that option, so...
In fact, it is technically also a valid-ish option for if he doesn't move, but doesn't jump either, it should still hit mostly. So now that you've got him there, once again, things shift a bit and improve for you.
And then, being the level he is at, he will probably adapt quickly, conveniently enough. And I get to advance to the next stage.
If there is one.
Round 2. Fight.
Otherwise we just get to play some Street Fighter, as they say.
Mhm.
Right, I need to use... Not actually Seppo for that, I don't think it goes under the fireball. EX Seppo would. And Orochi does only in its final frames, actually. I cannot do the heavy punch preemptively, however.
Well, part of the problem with this entire situation is that your
Oops.
players need to learn their focus limits.
The what?
Some people get over their focus limits. Some people get over their focus limits by specifically changing what they're focused on. Some people do it by making sure that they have a certain thing completely auto-piloted, and therefore they can stop worrying about it.
Yes.
Round 3. Fight.
And these have somewhat different advantages or disadvantages, I suppose.
Technically not really. It has more to do with the emotional state of the player than one being better for a certain situation and one being better for a different situation. It's almost always better to flatly increase your autopilot, but some people don't have the patience for that.
Yes, I was thinking that that's the, I think the option that I prefer ultimately of the two of them. That's not right. That was, all not right. Alright. So yes.
Round 4. Fight.
The neutral jump one is a little tricky because depending on the spacing, I think, well no, at the range where I could, you might say just heavy punch it without moving, he can get me first. Unless I EX or somehow, which is pretty much precisely spaced for that.
But
that's
yeah,
a
the
waste
problem
of
with
EX
this-
meter.
The problem with this way of thinking is that you already dropped the main parts of the game in order to get to this part, and it's causing you
Yeah.
problems.
I've noticed that as well. So now I have to figure
So as
out...
usual, at this point, you take a step back and try to paint about dealing with that correctly, because you technically never got that far. You never dealt with blocked a Hadouken, now I need to hit medium kick.
Yes.
Also, your opponent tends to jump after a crouching medium kick of their own because Ken's crouching medium kick on block is -4.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Same as mine then. Alright. Yes, and I think the reason that I never properly integrated the medium kick after Hadouken part was that I perceived that he was not doing it very often, or perhaps only when I was very far out relative to the range of my... Ah. Alright then, crouch medium kick. So apparently he has decided that I,
That was like 6 matches?
was not ready for.
Guess so.
Yes, precisely. 7, if we count the one before the stream started.
Okay.
So, to review that then, and to mark it down for myself as well, what I was doing was that I would try to walk up, then when I didn't feel safe for that, Mayoken. However, I wanted to block fireballs and react with stand medium kick, which is a little different from my usual. The reason for this being that it cuts off a lot of his options for after that stand medium kick. From that point then, I believe he went and started trying to neutral jump my Mayokens. Obviously he was jumping over me a lot throughout the whole of it. And for the neutral jumps, we had not quite settled on it, but the options that I had come up with for that are dash up heavy punch and slow Tenko. And actually, honestly, I could jump in on him from there.
No, you
And
cannot.
no, I couldn't aim for the air-to-air?
No.
Alright, why would that
Pretty
not...
sure you don't.
I see, why would that have failed? So
Because Ken, you will note, was jumping with his jumping medium kick, and the hitbox on that, unless you timed it really, really well, is going to clip you, especially if he jumped preemptively. He'll technically be on the way down when you're on the way up.
I see.
The hitbox vector will be different based on
I
the
see.
fact that the button's already out.
Alright, fair enough then. So that's not an option. So it was mainly those few. The EX for Senha is maybe possible sometimes, but iffy and baiting that would be bad. Alright. Did I miss any steps or levels in this? I feel like I missed some portion of a layer.
I'm not aware of any particular.
Okay. Well, perhaps it is a portion of a layer I had not found yet. Anyway, come on, server. Hopefully I'll get a new opponent soon. It'd be
If
really
not, as
cool
I
if it
said,
were gold
we do
Ken,
have
but
some options for that.
yes.
Especially since the thing you are aiming to train on is the same thing that Just One was training on earlier, and therefore I know how to recreate the situation rather quickly.
Alright then. Well, do you think we should give this a little more time, or should we switch right over to a bot form that can continue my prior training, do you think?
Well, you can always come back and remake a lounge if you find that you've succeeded what you wanted to do with the bot, so I'll leave it to you, of course.
Fair enough. Alright, I'll give it just a little bit longer and then I will switch over to making a training lounge. Training lounge. Well, either way.
The key point being that, honestly, the Ken versus Karine matchup is not really complicated unless one of them has more meter than the other. The meter imbalance is what generally decides the state of this matchup.
I see.
Because Ken doesn't really have to play footsies with Karine the way other characters do. He has a lot more mobility options forward than other Shotos tend to. And he has ways of faking his way in as well, which really helps. The speed of his Tatsu also changes whether or not Karine can do certain things. Like, basically, you can dash in on Ryu and not get hit by Tatsu. On Ken, you're going to get hit.
Sure. Anyway, I think then I will head over to the training lounge. So. Thank you for the game, Ken. Shall I select Ken again, then, I presume?
Actually, no. The reason for this in this case is that you still have to select Ryu, unless, of course, your Kenbot needs to be changed in some way. It's probably better to select Ryu and make the shift required, because we've done all the Ryu-bot testing needed. We can totally move into... Also, the shift that it seems to be required is actually really small.
Aha. Alright then. I'm not sure which bots I have on here. At some point I need to take an inventory of that, but it's a little difficult with prototypes. But as for Ryu, let's have a look and see if he is what we expect.
Well, also, the good part is that you are very, very familiar with the input requirements for the actions I have in mind, and it shouldn't be an issue at all, really.
Alright, it looks like I have some form of Ryu bot here.
Action 2 is intact.
Would you like to look at any of them specifically?
I think I need to see 5.
Alright, as you wish.
Because 5 contains the correct pacing for the jump and will become extremely important to this particular thing. So the basic concept of 5 was always, hey, I'm throwing a fireball in the number. And he mostly should be trying to do that.
Alright, mine seems to, oh, there we go. He likes his Tatsus.
I'm not really sure where he got the Tatsu from, but I think that was supposed to be in there maybe.
It was supposed to be in there as a hidden thing, and the timings must just be exactly right for him to like it on mine.
Okay.
In any case,
I didn't have a strong enough recollection of it.
It's
this is probably
certainly
fine.
easy to change. Okay.
It's probably okay for now. I'll double check as to what needs to happen later, but you do need to change 1 in order for this to work.
Alright.
I can explain how you need to change 1. In fact, wait, let's see. This action is rather strange, because the way it works now means that if he was intended to do that directly... Oh, before I go into investigating the status, the new action 1 is simply axe kick into medium Tatsu, cancel the axe kick on the first hit, and you can stop the recording as soon as the Tatsu has connected. That's it.
Okay, very simple. And axe kick is back heavy? Yes. So what I'm interested in is just only that. Alright, I can do that. As soon as the Tatsu has connected, you say?
Yes.
So right there. Okay then, let's have a look at playing that. And in playback, as one might expect, it becomes just the axe kick until such time as he hits me with it.
then you are set. You only need to now turn on actions 1, 2, and 5. If there's any change needed to action 5 to make this work, I will notice it fairly quickly. So the key point here is that when he jumps from action 5, and the reason I was concerned is because when he jumps from action 5, he now has 3 options.
Do I need to mess with the meters at all?
You shouldn't need to.
Okay.
Again, I'll let you know depending on what I see.
Alright.
So he throws the fireball and then he jumps. And it's possible that he will hit the light kick, and it's possible that he will hit other things.
Alright.
See, my concern is that this is not, in any form that I can find, the version of the bot expected.
Alright, well it may have been some prototype or something else strange.
So, you should probably change action 5 to simply Light Punch Hadouken
Okay.
with a hidden Light Kick Tatsu, and then hold 9.
How long would you like me to hold that? Or is that about it? Oh, nope, I got a up in there. Oop. Oop. Oop.
It's probably
There
easier
we go.
to like...
Nope. I'm just trying to do it a little too fast.
Well, it's because of the way you move from back to jump forward, which is kind of a problem in this case. It would be easier and probably better to just go all the way back.
How's that? I'm not sure he's gonna do his Tatsus in that version.
He's not supposed to.
No, I mean, I'm not sure he can do his Tatsus in that version.
He's not supposed to.
Oh, okay, well.
Oh, you mean the kick being in
I have it on the down
space.
back.
We don't actually care at the moment.
Alright,
We don't
well, so
actually
be
care about that Tatsu.
Alright, so then in that case, I'll put it on 5 and we can have a look at that. Oh, apparently he can do all 3 things. So, 1, 2, 5. And let's see how this goes.
So the primary thing you're trying to train yourself to do, as noted, is to actually block the Hadouken. And you should probably turn off his CA gauge, because he'll build it up often enough, but you should still probably should. Because of the tendency it will make him do the ES version. We would like the ES version to come out slightly less. So we're going to see the Tatsu, the Hadouken come out, and you should not be concerned for the potential to get clipped by that light punch after it.
Okay. Alright, my immediate main concern about all of this is that just being close enough to properly clip him with the medium kick seems to be a little difficult, as opposed to whiffing it and getting punished. Huh?
You're not aiming to.
Oh, alright.
You see, the purpose of this entire training, and the reason you didn't need it in that match against the Ken specifically, was because if you hit the medium kick, they can't dash forward, they can't usually throw another normal, other than a very light one, and you block in time if they jump.
I see. Okay, that's fair enough.
If they are too close and attempt to jump, you will clip them before they can get out of the range of the kick, which is not necessarily true for the hitbox on the crouch medium kick.
Sure. Yes, also getting the stand medium kick is a little more difficult. I don't use that button as much. So I tend to get crouching normals when I intend standing ones some of the time.
So you should be able to fairly easily know that no matter what he really tries to do here, it's not going to come up in that regard. Now the interesting thing, when you get used to this, I'll have you fix 5 slightly off,
Okay.
but it's actually serving your purposes now.
Alright then.
It's 2 that's a little weird.
We can presumably fix that
Not
too
sure
if
how we
necessary.
managed that. Also, you could probably use that entire timing to try to get in with ESFO or just figure out the projectile and its abilities for as needed.
Sure. Alright, well let's have a look at that then.
This also helps because you do have to keep this in mind quite a lot. The multiple spacings that you need to be able to deal with fireballs from, you will never be able to get particularly high in rank or in understanding of Street Fighter if you view fireballs as just something that you should defend.
Sure.
Because without that, you're not controlling the pace of the match at all.
Yes, that sounds correct.
One useful thing for you to note though is, as long as your opponent has cancelled crouching medium kick into fireball at all, your stand medium kick is okay. There are few characters for whom this is not true, and in fact, it is not particularly well known, obviously,
Just play
but
the ranges.
that is a large part of the difference between characters who actually have the extended medium kick and those who don't. Those who don't have the extended medium kick don't really have as much ability to deal with fireball pressure from other characters, and it can become harder to do things overall.
I see. Well, I don't play anyone like that, other than Ibuki, I suppose. And I don't presently play her much either. I have plenty of study to do there.
So, since it is usually that you're hitting back medium kick anyway, all you really have to do is keep holding back.
Oh, just to continue
There's
blocking.
usually no need to go back to down back at that point.
Alright.
It's extremely unlikely that your opponent can reach you with a crouching normal. And that they're the same sort of player or character that you need to worry about hitting this in the first place.
I
So
see.
you never really have to worry about it.
Alright. I just concern myself with losing space at those points in time. If I end up walking back too far.
The question then becomes, what is too far? And what would your opponent try to do with the space if you did?
Yes, and presumably, if I get far enough back, they'll either just continue throwing fireballs, which doesn't necessarily change the situation a great deal, or they'll jump in on me. Which, given the range they're at, I would have plenty of reaction time too, since it would be basically one of two only things they could do to me.
And that is key. The key
And
is
then
that
they
once
either
you've
try
done
to
that,
combo.
you also then prepare for the anti-air. Because you can't be clipped low except by not the sort of character that you care about any of this on. You can't be clipped low. You generally have time to react to a dash in. The only things you care about are, am I giving up too much space, and am I ready for the jump in?
Sure.
A
Yes,
fireball
the only-
character often throws another fireball, but then they have to question, should I throw a third? Because if they throw a third, you are usually at the range where you can counter the third. Especially since you've just finished blocking the second, and if you've ever studied fireball timings, you'll actually realize that in order for a fireball to be effective, it must be thrown almost exactly as the first has disappeared off the screen. So
Otherwise, it
the
just gives me
opponent
too
doesn't
much
have a
time to work.
Yeah, they don't really have a whole huge amount of time that they can spend before throwing the next fireball. So it basically comes down to a read of, should I move in expecting them to throw it, or should I wait and try to react to it? There are really only two effective fireball timings in these situations. So he throws it, you hit it, and once again, you don't actually care about that jab. Ryu cares about that jab because Ryu cares about clipping you with damage, making sure that things aren't... That you care about. And that is what the bot is intended to do specifically. If you miss with that, Ryu has the capacity to axe kick.
The stand medium kick, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
If you miss the both, you have to miss both the timing and the range. You have to be too slow and be out of range. No, being out of range is normally at least something that happens fairly often. You don't have a lot of control over that, and it's hard to react perfectly every time. But the only time you normally get hurt for being out of range
So if your timing is off.
is if you are also too slow. See?
Right, and because of the
Basically no danger.
minuses involved, I don't really care. Given the speeds of the medium kick. Basically, even if I'm completely out of range.
Yes. So it means that one of your opponent's largest options is to either do a very unsafe move. Ryu has better options actually. Ryu doesn't have to hit a very unsafe move. Ryu has one decent option here. But
Which
it's
is
not for hurting you, it's for getting closer to you. He can hit solar plexus strike just to get closer. But it's -2 or something, and you don't actually care if he gets closer or not.
Alright. If he gets closer, it just means I'm more likely to get the little bit of damage off of my medium kick.
And fortunately, our bot happens to also have the solar plexus strike, so occasionally you will in fact have to deal with this. But you can see how it goes from, oh, I have to deal with all these fireballs and pressure and spacing things, to basically, oh, it's basically been figured out, it's been decoded.
Yes. He might jump, otherwise I just get to keep doing this.
You know,
Just-
as I was telling you, it literally doesn't even matter if he does jump. If he does jump, you can either attempt to anti-air it or you can block it. Because the
Oh.
medium kick recovers fast
Ah.
enough for you to block.
Yeah, okay, understood. And that's why I want to keep walking backwards, simply because that will block
there's
it.
literally no way
So it doesn't
in.
even depend on my reaction times at all. I see.
No.
So he can do literally nothing to me.
Well,
except playing a little
obviously there's
space.
always some option.
Yes.
But in terms of, I need to worry about this from the mix-up perspective, it's not putting yourself into a defensive mix-up. It is just defense. And it's a good defense, so you don't really have to worry about it that much. Certain Ryu players can perfectly space it so that they get you with the Tatsu, but the reason this is all fair, the reason this all works, is because as soon as Ryu gets you into the corner, this
Then I'm
stops being true.
screwed. Yes, and then I'm in trouble.
So it is the defense mode against fireballs in the middle of the screen. And Ryu has to put up with it and slowly push you back because, interestingly, for your own execution of it will generally tend to cause you to go backward. But once he's gotten you there, then you have to worry about some things. So you have to
Yes.
look for your opportunity to not give up space. Or read what he's doing, throwing with a fireball or a dash or something and get some
Cross him
confirms
over
into some
in some
damage,
way.
into some screen time, screen space, whichever you want to consider it to be. But
Yes, and if he does
overall-
jump, and I can see it quickly enough, I can just Seppo under him and reset the whole situation.
that is also true. In fact, for most characters, they can simply forward dash as well.
I would be shocked if
That
Curry
is a bit
cannot.
character dependent. That is fairly character dependent, but many characters can just go, okay, I'm dashing then. And in fact, it is finding that moment where you think, okay, they're finally going to jump. I'm near the corner. I could try to anti-air them, or I could just go under.
Or, being Kareen, I could do both.
Generally, yes. But getting stuck in the feeling that you must do this thing a particular way is a problem. The other option Ryu has is to do this, but to do EX Hadouken. Because EX Hadouken, it doesn't necessarily let him jump, although he can risk it. But it does change it so that he can do axe kick or something else afterwards, because
I see.
EX Hadouken is not minus. So you don't get to just hit the medium kick afterwards.
Aha.
Technically, he gets to hit his medium kick afterwards. But it also has more pushback and doesn't tend to lead too much for him. It's just like if you realize someone's doing this too much and you're having trouble getting in on them, well, you can burn some meter to get in.
Sure. That's fair. What did you say was wrong with Action 2? Or what does it affect?
It's actually, there's nothing specifically wrong with Action 2. We were trying, as you probably remember, we have it perfect on Just Fine, but we were trying to get the mirror plank functionality, but for some reason it seems to cause him to do crouching. Oh, no, actually, I see there. That's not it. It's actually that when you were attempting to input this the first time, somehow a crouching heavy punch ended up in it.
Oh, okay.
So it probably is not that the plank isn't anywhere wrong, it's that the action itself has one extra input in it that you didn't really want. So you could fix that at some point, probably later.
Okay.
What I was actually talking about was Action 5, where the up forward was not held quite long enough to actually cause him to jump. He just throws the fireball and keeps throwing it
Alright,
more.
that's some of what I expected.
For the purposes of this, it's not really that important. You can change it if you want to get used to the anti-airing,
I think I would like to do that a
and
little
since
bit.
it's not a particularly hard input to do.
Yes.
So basically, you should be trying to do this such that you respond to him leaving the ground, not anywhere he gets into the air. I have long since learned, in terms of recording of bots, that actually the amount of reaction time a human has to seeing a character leave the ground is quite large. Even when they're actually the one moving the character, we don't actually focus on that. We focus on something else altogether in terms of targeting and timing and something. I can't tell exactly what it is.
Okay.
But
So the goal here is to, sorry if I interrupted you, you could continue, but the goal I believe is to axe kick into cancel one into Tatsu, and then, do I want the jump to actually come out?
No, this is Action 5, which is a light punch Hadouken with a hidden light kick Tatsu.
Thank you.
And then you're going back to up forward. And when you see him leave the ground for the up forward, end the recording.
Oh, okay. Got it. I tried to hide the up forward entirely last time, which is probably the cause of the problem. So let's see. Something like that, but more like... That's wrong. Ooh, that's really wrong. So something like that. If I put in a Tatsu, which I did. It looks like that should do everything. Let's have a look at it.
That looks to me as if it's fine. I can't imagine it going too wrong. It might be a little bit off on the timing of the deep heavy kick that he's supposed to be able to do out of it, but it's not going to be like too terrible. And since you now have an idea, a feeling of how high he is when he does the heavy kick, you can probably figure out how far up into the air you'd have to let him get on the recording in order to get an actual legit jump in.
Sure.
And then fix that accordingly as you prefer. But really, just for the initial practice, as I've always said to people for bots, conceptual practice with learning how to do the thing that the bot is for the inputs don't matter as much. It's just really a question of how deep the punishment for it not coming is. So I wouldn't say, oh, well, go fix this, because all that will end up happening is that you will have to take more damage. If you are not anti-airing him properly anyway, then there's no need to fix it yet.
Alright. In that
as you can
case...
see, the Light Tatsu does have its own purpose in that it is just fast enough that if he does... that if you get the EX Fireball blocked and he goes into Action 5, that he will do just directly Light Tatsu, which is precisely the way that you learn I shouldn't just throw out buttons against this. So he throws the EX Fireball, and you're not supposed to throw out your kick at that point. This is one of the most important things to quickly train yourself to do to get better at Street Fighter overall, and I definitely am considering to make an adjustment to the Ryubot with some information on this, simply because the thing that we had Ryubot doing initially was to help people deal with overheads, but I'm recognizing, of course, that this is probably a more useful thing for people to understand, and it covers more situations than a block overhead punish Shoryuken. And since Ryubot is technically within our moderate session anyway, I might see if we can get some tweaks done and have people benefit from this in terms of learning.
Sure.
So as for your play, I'm pretty sure that you now have a fairly decent idea of why this works the way it does, and what exactly you want to do it for, and that would hopefully help you feel more comfortable about it. Now, unfortunately, I doubt that if you go back to lounges, you'll just happen to come across a Ryu or Ken. And even if you were to play casuals, you would probably, well, no, you'd get them about half the time, sure.
But I wouldn't get to continue with the same one. Which is definitely something useful in terms of some of this stuff.
But for the purposes of the concept of learning matchups, you already understand that the Ken matchup you were doing is mostly dependent on this interaction anyway. So really, if you were thinking about it like as if that person is a friend of yours and just told you, okay, here's the matchup, here's what you're supposed to do, go practice it in training mode.
That's basically where we're at.
So there's no real point in having them come back. So the question is simply whether or not you want to go to Battle Lounge and see if you do end up with anyone else, so that you can maybe come up with something else to practice at a different timing for another matchup. You seem to have this one down.
Yes, I think I will do that right now. And I suppose I can save this. I can figure out Ryubot another time, or...
No, actually, as I was telling you, this is a legitimate change. He is in no way now incorrect relative to Ryubot. This, you could run all the actions and this would be a totally valid Ryubot as is.
Oh, alright then. I will save it as it is then. Boop. Boop. Boop.
So I would say you should probably set the lounge to first to something else, because I was realizing that the first to one isn't really for this type of lounge with you.
Okay. Something like this then?
Well, first to two, I don't know if you really need it to be 3 rounds or 5 rounds, but it definitely should probably be at least first to two, because you're not really benefiting from having it shorter. That's mostly so that you and Amara get to interchange your information when you are training on Mondays.
Yes.
But for this, it's probably fine.
We'll go with this and see what happens. I'll certainly get more joiners this way.
Ah, yes, you certainly will.
Hello, Cammy. Well then, shall we be Diamond Cammy? Alright. Aha. Bison then. Yes, I think it would last a grand total of 1 second against a Diamond Cammy.
Well, I'm pretty sure that at least some people are thankful to see such lounges because it lets them get practice on their sub-characters, while
Yes.
also, it's not really having a terrible effect on the opponent because high-level players beat you based on fundamentals, so you get to learn fundamentals. Everyone benefits, probably.
Yes. Alright, so let's see how this goes.
Fight.
Now we have Bison, and what kind of Bison are you? Uh-oh. The kind I cannot defend. I only have exactly one frame that Stand Heavy Punch can stop his head stomps, unfortunately. I expect I can at least trade
Yes,
with him with
but
Stand
I
Heavy
have
Punch,
given-
but only on
but I have
precisely
given
one
you a
frame.
very specific answer to this already.
Ah.
Just Seppo out of the way.
Oh, right. I do recall that now.
Especially
well,
since
have
you're
at that.
usually crouch blocking, and that's what makes the Bison player do this. So as soon as you see him go up in the air, just floop, and gone.
I'm so very, very accustomed to trying to, like, actually anti-air things that I don't think of that dodging them very often, but I really should because it's definitely a valid tactic in many situations. So, let's see if I can do better second time around.
One of the reasons why this is so important is because Bison is good at dealing with forward movement, but not so good that he can keep up with Seppo specifically.
Sure,
can
because
do
Seppo can go far
backdashes.
fast.
Fight.
So it's definitely one of the main things you need to do that you should deal with this purely by Seppo, even if you have no other direct concept of how this should work. And that then opens you up to having the reaction required to do the jumping medium punch. Because the Seppo deals with all of his follow-ups as well.
Yes. Oops. Did I just Seppo into the corner? Alright. Well, he crossed over from me for just a brief moment. And I have no idea if my move went off or not. But,
Well, actually, that is a way that Bison players can manipulate, because otherwise Karine would be basically unhittable by this move. So
Yes.
the Bison player in turn must learn how to manipulate their own head stomp so much, or their own jump so much, that Karine ends up in the wrong place. Which is difficult, but worth practicing.
so, well then, there's that again.
Unfortunately, you gain basically no meter for doing Seppo without a finish, and therefore can't build up power that way to deal with the jump in more.
Well, that just technically depends on how early I react and how long his move goes, because I could probably do some follow-up depending, but it would probably be starting to cut it a little close.
Well, I am thankful that this is the opponent you got. I hope they stick around at least for a little bit. Primarily
not.
because...
However, I have Ken back. Is it the same Ken?
No, it is most blatantly not the same kid.
Alright. I forgot his name, unfortunately. I'm not good at looking at those.
But that was... Their name was Guile... I think...
Oh,
yeah,
yes,
Guile
yes.
Maman 00. In any case,
Alright then.
they
And he's not
definitely
the
were
same
like
Ken.
super good, so...
Alright.
but
Yes,
here
I
here
couldn't
we get
quite
to
tell
see
what
whether or not this
concept.
has a particular meaning. Whether or not this level of Ken, whether or not this part of the matchup is useful, or if there's a different part of the matchup you need to focus on more in order to deal with Ken at this level.
Indeed, and we shall soon see.
But the Bison has reminded me that you probably need to double check your own dictator bot.
Alright, I'm not actually sure I have it entered. It's probably partial, actually. I was trying to do it in a hurry at one point for some stream, but did not manage it. So, I can have a look at that. Probably later.
But we do know that the overall flow of dealing with Ken when he's trying to cross you up, you already know. You basically just Myoken out of the way, and then figure out. Then it actually becomes a matter of how well you understand the scramble that follows. To get really good at Karina at this level, you have to have a very strong understanding of where you end up after doing that, and what options you have based on the movement.
Yes, I often find that my ideal solution is to simply throw at that point, because of where they end up, although it doesn't seem to be the case in this particular arrangement.
No, because normally when you use Myoken to get out of Ken's way, you are trying to do it based on Ken. You are Myokening from a Ken who jumps in flatly neutral. This Ken jumps directly after hitting you with something. This is the sort of Ken where you don't really need that much matchup experience. You could just like wait for them to do crouch medium kick and then hit them with your air target combo, that is. It's not really that difficult to do relative to most people. However, learning the correct things to do when Ken is in the wrong spacing for you to do that is what the higher level Ken was about, because the lower level Kens are getting away with it. They're playing to the level that they are at. Their opponents are generally getting hit by the jump in, and therefore the matches continue and they'd have no reason to stop jumping in from there. A higher level Ken has been through an entire gauntlet of people who terrifyingly anti-air that particular jump, nearly 100% of the time, and they learn to stop doing it. Or at least to not do it without a very calculated reason for doing it. But this player, for example, right, they have to stay quiet long enough, but right there, you can actually deal with what they're doing. There's no specific reason that after the hits that you shouldn't just do your standard neutral jump medium punch, I believe it is.
Yes.
And the few times when it is not the correct response are not enough to justify not doing justify doing it differently. Now, this particular opponent might find a way around it, or they might change the timings they jump in at, or the moves that they do after it, but you can easily solve this by just being ready with EX or Senha, dashing under it. You have many options on Kareem for dealing with multiple spacings of this behavior. The question is simply whether or not you can learn all of the jumping ranges Ken has, and to recognize them in time to decide what to do about them. But I can definitely tell you that in almost every situation, once you have just been hit by a crouching medium kick, and you blocked it, you have the option, flatly. So, also if your opponent whiffs it and they try to jump anyway, you have the option. There's almost no timing at which Ken can do that and then hit you with something that Kareem will lose to in that situation.
Sure.
Final round. Fight.
So what it tends to do is reduce this sort of match to a very plodding sort of pace until the Ken player stops jumping and tries to find a different way in. The standard separate different way in is actually to use his forward heavy kick and to either feint it or not feint it as the situation says.
Sure, okay.
But I would say that the early Ken matchup is primarily about understanding his jumping ranges because he's that kind of character. And that would be the other part, learning that you can be whiff punished if you may open incorrectly.
Dang. Alright. The hell should not have saved my meter. Especially considering what I was attempting to learn.
So there are two ways to look at this sort of situation, especially in battle lounges and in casuals, when you're aiming to learn. your opponent might not be strategically better than you. This was actually a topic on yesterday's Uncensored. Your opponent might not be strategically better than you, but your execution might be too low to defeat theirs. Your execution would then match their strategy.
I see.
Their level of execution versus your level of strategy is probably evenly matched, and vice versa. Your execution does not beat their strategy, even though they don't have the strongest strategy.
Yes, and that can be a very, very frustrating position to stick in.
However, in the end, you have to accept that that is one part of getting better at the game overall, and two, really most of the game, that never changes. The game doesn't have a space in which everyone is exactly at the same level of these things. No matter how good you get at Street Fighter, for the most part, there will always be someone with some incredible strategy, and you have to beat them with your execution because you can't keep up, and the same thing happens here.
Yes. And that makes enough sense.
I don't think we know this guy. Or maybe not.
Mr. I can't think of the name, but I am horrible at remembering people's names. So I wouldn't know.
I can definitely say that Guile is a character who is very difficult for anyone to play particularly differently. You have to get to a fairly high level before your Guile starts to be distinguishable from other people's Guile.
I see.
It mostly has to do with meter usage and planning and not being reactive to certain things.
So he is, regardless of whether we've ever seen him before, similar to the Guile we know.
Mostly.
Well, similar, not necessarily the same.
Now the problem is that Guile stands up against Karim pretty well in a lot of situations because Guile, while his moves are actually slow, despite the fact that Sonic Boom is +2, his moves are actually slow enough that, for the most part, the tactic mentioned against Ryu still sort of works. Especially since Guile technically, Ryu can like reposition himself to clip you and then throw his fireball. Again, cancelled. Guile doesn't really have this option. Guile can't throw his fireball walking forward at all. So your job is only to go, okay, I just need to stand here. At this point you don't necessarily know what the here is, but I just need to stand here. If he throws a Sonic Boom with me standing here, I can hit with medium kick. And anywhere behind that point, he might be safe in that you wouldn't want to hit medium kick, but he might not get away with doing certain things. Oh, it appears you're back up.
Indeed. Alright then.
The
So
main
this
thing to
tactic
think about
is
there
similar.
is... Now the problem is you don't know where the here is.
Yes.
And therefore you're going to end up in a lot of positions where he could do a different move, and the different move becomes a good idea.
Yes, I expect to have lots of entertaining encounters with his normals before I figure that out.
But Karin does have an advantage there. Leokin beats nearly everything Guile does, if you are at near to the correct space. The only thing it doesn't beat is Sonic Boom, interestingly, and therefore you can force him to throw them. Like, even when Guile pushes you out with normals, aside from like sweep, you can just, once he's pushed you out with normals, you can just hit Leokin almost all the time.
Yes, the only error I encountered there was, in fact, related to said sweep. The question actually is whether I want to charge that Mayokin or not.
Usually not.
Alright.
I mean, Guile does have good, decent punishes if you don't, but you're mainly dealing with it as a way to get closer to him without worrying about a bottom jump, other than this. So you get pushed out with normals, and then you clip, and that's it. But as you noted, unfortunately, there's a lot of timings and spaces where you'll end up in problems with his normals, as a general thing.
Flash kick! I suppose that would be the other thing that can beat it.
Yeah, but it's a terrible idea.
Yes, a little bit. because I could just bait it and
Also,
then,
I would note specifically that only the EX Flash Kit does that, so it's not really the different than facing any other character.
Sure. Well, didn't
And
you
if
say
your
his booms were a
timing-
different minus, though, that would change the properties so that such Flash Kit could hit?
No, that's not what
Oh.
I'm referring to specifically.
Alright, I missed something.
I'm saying that because booms are minus, I'm saying that the flash kick is a bad idea to do in general. I mean, Ryu could just do Shoryuken. Ken did, actually. I believe you were fighting at some point and the Ken player just decided, okay, I'm going to Shoryuken here because I know you're going to Mayoken. Or I know you're going to click this button.
Yes.
And they just did that. But the mix-up on that's a terrible defensive mix-up because you're basically going, as soon as my fireball recovers, I'm going to do this move that has crush counter level damage when my opponent just keeps blocking. This is a terrible plan.
It's it's a bit of a gutsy choice there, yes.
Guile is in a worse situation than most because Guile doesn't even have the option of negative confirming the button part. If Guile goes to up forward without hitting a button, he's gained nothing. He's still in a bad situation.
You lose.
In fact, he's at that point basically surrendered himself to being some form of overheaded or harassed.
Probably.
So yes, as predicted, many encounters with his normals and possibly one success. We'll have to see if that continues.
Part of the problem is that it's very hard on the first step of one of these interactions. It's very hard to just have enough confidence to go, okay, I'm going to hit this unfamiliar button. I'm going to do this thing that I've never done before. Because human brains are annoying in this particular way. If you tell a human brain, you have never done this before, but they had the opportunity to do it at any time, then they go basically retcon justify it. The brain will go, well, obviously I've never done it before, so it couldn't be a good idea.
That's like the opposite of true.
Most of the time, yes, but it probably helped our ancestors.
Tried to charge that. Would have gone better if I didn't.
One of the things that you need, that nearly everyone in the 2MK group needs to become more familiar with, except obviously on Rabbit Hood has a different problem altogether, is that for the most part, for most of our characters, holding down while hitting our VCM makes no difference. So there's no reason to put yourself at risk of getting hit by a sweep or similar move because it's not relevant. You could just hit and do Mayoken or anything else you want, regardless of the fact that you're holding down that. I'm just not here.
Of course, the Mayoken itself stands me up, but it gives me a few frames there.
Yeah, but the reason I bring this up is because if your opponent decides, I'm going to just start throwing out sweep before that, as early as I can, a lot of the time that's what happens. They'll hit your block rather than... Because if you flinch and don't hit the Mayoken, for example, if they realize the sweep keeps working because you keep on not... Every time you flinch, you are also standing. Then obviously when they do that, they'll get away. And they'll feel comfortable hitting the sweep. But it's not a good idea for them. So the best thing you can do for yourself is make sure you're holding down that. Because they're already feeling empowered, encouraged to hit things like sweep. So you've saved yourself a lot of trouble by making sure you are crouch blocking.
Yes, that's a better default. And also not something people will tend to think about a great deal necessarily if they don't play charge characters, where they're basically required to learn this.
Generally, people who play charge characters for various reasons, tend to have slightly better defense. It's not even just that. Also, Guile is really, really weak to that technique. When he's attempting to cross you up, if you jump backward, he's super weak to it, because he has nearly no buttons and nearly no situations that help him out of that. He goes for the cross up, you don't have a good reaction time, you hit up back, and Guile doesn't know what to do.
I see.
Because even if
question.
it causes...
I keep messing up my crouch medium punch, crouch medium kick, cancel Mujin Kyaku. And is it like I'm missing the first hit of the Mujin or something due to range, or is it just my timing? Because it could very well be my timing, considering my present skill with that.
You should probably check based on the spacing with some of the opponents.
Alright.
There's also potentially one
Ow.
issue that might be important. There's a defensive tactic in this game that people aren't usually talking about seriously anymore, because it was like, okay, that was cool, but only the highest level players, as we know at the moment, are putting a lot of effort into pushing this into their game and working on it. When you get counter hit out of certain moves, it makes your opponent's combos harder to do.
Sure.
So it is entirely possible that what you are doing is that you are clipping someone, such as a defensive character like Guile, from farther away than usual with your crouch and medium punch. And whatever move they happen to be doing also changes the property and makes it difficult to land the Mujin after the crouch medium kick.
Because
I'm not saying
their
that's what
move getting
happened.
counter hit pushes them back extra.
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's possible. I just wasn't sure if it was even what was happening, because it is a relatively new combo for me. Remember, I was practicing that on not Dictator, the other Bison bot, Boxer bot, a while ago. And so it's relatively new, and I haven't necessarily done that cancel a lot, so I could be just screwing it up. So, I realized, you know, if I'm missing the first hit of Mujin, it might be what's causing the drop. So I figured I would check in case you could see it directly. But in the meantime, I believe you were saying.
Right. So actually, I don't have anything specific to say, because at this point you've reached that moment of, okay, I have 3 things that I'm doing wrong here. Nothing's going to get better until I stop doing those 3 things wrong. This is a really important thing to learn for people, and why we keep our notes and our sheets and all those things in that level of concern. If you think you're doing okay and you are doing something wrong, if you're doing like 3 things wrong, that's it, you're stuck.
Sure.
For example, you're doing 3 specific things wrong. The first thing you're doing wrong is that you're waiting too long on the Mayokin. You're not confident enough to just say, okay, we're at the spacing now, Mayokin time. Because you're figuring, oh, my opponent will be hitting buttons. Which is normally true, but not for Guile.
Okay.
Plus, if you're wrong, you get clipped very, very little most of the time.
Alright. And what's the second one?
The second thing you're doing wrong is that when Guile is attacking you, remember Guile is a zoner. Guile doesn't have wake-up pressure. None of it is... It's real in that you can't get out of it, but it's terrible in that most of the time we are like, ah, he's next to me, I must avoid something. But there's nothing to avoid, really.
I see.
Guile's wake-up pressure is really bad.
So I can just sit there?
For the most part, that is what you're supposed to do.
Okay.
And most of us get used to, okay, after this thing, I'll hit a button, because they might walk forward and delay the frame trap of their next button. But Guile won't do this. Guile loses everything to walk forward. It's not even... Well, he could faultless move, but
that looks
that's so slow
different.
that it doesn't really... It's actually that it's so slow that it doesn't do enough repositioning for you to care. The last thing you're doing wrong is jumping out of the way of a lot of things that make no sense. See this whole interaction with, like, you do Mayokin and then he pokes you back out and throws a Sonic Boom? That's where we wanted to get. That was the aim. So once we've gotten there, you're basically set. And it was not managing to get there that was the third thing wrong.
Now I just gotta put my response to that in properly. Oop. Got it crush countered. I think the block properties or timing are a little bit different here than...
Yes, as I mentioned, because the Sonic Boom is actually plus, one, you have a much smaller timing to do it in. And secondly, the overall concept of it is different. You can't do it from as close. But remember, Gull is never cancelling into this move, which is why it's a problem.
Sure.
He very seldom cancels into Sonic Boom.
Right.
And when he does, the pushback is not usually so great.
Okay. Yeah, alright. So... Alright then. I will retarget that a little bit further then. So, hello again. Nope. Alright, I guess he's done with me for the moment. So, let's see here. We've been going for about our usual hour and a half. We could end the stream here. Let's see if someone else joins us.
Actually, I do have a request for that before we end the stream, both for the purposes of posterity and so I can check something else. You probably should go into training mode and see what your version of DictatorBot is, so that we know whether or not anything needs to immediately change, and so you could check out one or two of the things that you were doing before, when you did get a join from the Diamond Bison.
Yes, alright. Well, let's have a look at that then.
Escape at noon. Harin Kanzuki. Fighting.
You must aim for the highest level.
Alright, well... B-skill and an EX backward punch? What does he get off an backwards EX punch?
I'm not sure what that is for, actually.
Alright, it might just be wrong.
It does not look... It does... No, that's not a... Actually, no, that's, EX Inferno.
Oh, okay.
That one looks unfamiliar, but could be right. Ashen 2, that is.
Alright.
Ashen
All
2
right.
clearly has far too much mashing in it for it to be anything specific.
I'm actually going to say that I only put in actions 1 and maybe 2, failed attempts at 2 before I had to give up, because the rest of these are something from long ago when I was exploring some of his head stomp responses, and they're not part of an actual bot.
Well, that is actually still relatively close to the point,
Yes.
in that you can sample out of a lot of these, but it is important for me to know that this is the status of your Dictator bot, and therefore that viewers who will be looking forward to the bot showcase tomorrow, it will not be on your channel, most likely, unless we
So-
manage to get it all in.
Well, I could make the attempt tomorrow morning.
But yes, as you can see, there's really no reason to have a response other than Seppo to this. It's so hard for
Yeah.
Karin to handle anything else as a general thing.
Pretty much. There's like nothing I can do other than Seppo and sort of EX. But even that has trouble because it's no longer invincible by the time it actually reaches him.
Yes, you have to time that particularly well. The question is, does the Bison player get anything out of you doing Seppo? Is there a benefit to them if you try to evade this using Seppo?
The only
I can't think of any because one of the largest things that people don't recognize about why Head Stomp and Somersault Skulldiver are so fair is because the only charge that Bison can keep doing this is down. So if you can switch sides with him, basically it's not a very long time, but if you have the correct timing on your own, he basically can't get a back charge in time because he's
I
not
see,
sure which
because I
direction
break
he
it at
should
that
charge.
moment. I see.
So he'll normally throw out buttons to try to save himself that and try to get some time, but on the other hand, most of his good buttons are in that situation back again. So here's one option I can see that you have. You could simply light Seppo and then jump back toward him.
Okay.
Now, I'm not absolutely sure that this would be super effective at a lot of things because the main thing it would do is force Bison to be ready for something that doesn't make a ton of sense.
It appears to depend a little bit on what version he does. Like that, you're saying?
Okay, light is too little bit. Light is too small for this.
Alright, well,
I
medium
thought
can be
that light was
arranged.
going to be the correct one. Medium is probably the correct version. Heavy looks like it could also work, but I think he'd be ready too often. It also depends, of course, on the direction that Bison goes after trying it. But you should generally be safe enough to do this because while Bison's anti-airs are good enough and actually quick enough to deal with you doing this, having to be ready to do it can cause some difficulty. Plus, is one of the few times when you're using Korean standing, Korean's jumping light kick is probably better.
Oh, I hadn't considered that. Alright. I'll give that a shot as well. Why do you
Medium will
say?
generally work.
See, the
Medium will
reason I
generally
selected
work,
medium is because medium can cross up. And I was normally ending up in cross-up spacings with this. And light kick can't cross up unless it's really precise.
True. But consider the situation in which you have caused Bison to whiff entirely off of an anti-air. He does do. Medium has stuck forward your leg in a way that is generally going to cause a problem.
I suppose.
It's specifically because of the way his crouching heavy punch works. But again, I'm just saying this based on minor things that I'm seeing, minor things that I'm used to from fighting Karin on Bison.
I see. Well, alright. I actually have no idea how
And
to
also
combo a
with-
jump in off of light.
Your light also obviously does cross up as well, but the main thing you're aiming to do is because it's not really that you're trying to make a combo off the light, because the issue is Bison is already holding down back.
Ah,
You're forcing him to give up the down part of the down back as quickly as possible
so I don't even care.
and ending up close to him. So comboing off of it is not really that relevant.
And I can
could-
do it, it's just,
In any case, since it's
Anyway.
also easy to do stand medium punch or stand light kick again, and it does cause him some discomfort, let's put it that way. There are certainly
focusing.
benefits to trying it. The main reason being this. Of the things that Bison can do, you can see that the buttons he can hit, there's not a lot of great options there most of the time. And therefore it helps you out to do this. But one of the main reasons for this is actually psychological. It is to make sure that the player does not learn to identify your approach by the medium kick. Because while most people actually don't respond to which button you're pressing because of the input lag, just seeing the light kick can often be like mentally confusing because
I see.
you're not absolutely sure what will happen.
Alright, that makes sense.
Also, I believe it has a lower hitbox earlier than the medium, but you were the one who would know that sort of thing from the hitbox
I
check.
unfortunately have very little experience with this kick. I think the medium's minimum hurt box is actually relatively low. So it would be like I hit
I thought
there
Red
versus
specifically
hitting.
moved-
Yes, you're right. The light kick will hit earlier than the medium kick will, it looks like. But not necessarily by a huge amount.
Yeah, but 3 frames is a lot when it comes to Bison anti-airs, trust me.
Accepted.
Well, there's only so much you can get out of this knowing that he's there, but it's just another thought for the matchup, because that was where you fell a little short in the last one. You fought an opponent who would consistently do the head stomp,
Right.
and you would consistently get out of the way, but then
But that was all I could do, yes. Having some option for secondary response is useful.
The other reason it's good is because it does a very good job of baiting people into immediately trying to do another head stomp. But if you do back-to-back head stomps, you're much more vulnerable, because you no longer have as much control over where your opponent is.
Sure. And I don't know the details of Bison's head stomps, but I believe you do need to decide in advance to some degree where you're going to move.
Not
Even if
much.
not completely.
The main important thing is actually that if your opponent knows that you have to head stomp within a certain number of frames, because this is how that actually works. If they know you've just landed, I have gotten out of your way, you are now obligated to head stomp immediately, because otherwise I might come in and hit you on the way down with my light kick.
Sure.
So it is possible to clip Bison out of the startup of a head stomp with your light kick.
Okay.
In fact, that was one of the things that you learned from this particular thing you are doing now, that you could mostly just jump light kick all his head stomps. It's the only button you have that really consistently works.
That I had not considered. I'm going to test this now. At least a little bit.
If he's decently far away, you can just instant jump light kick almost all of them.
I have to arrange the
If he's too
decently
close,
far away.
it's harder. Actually, I don't remember if the kick itself needed to be instant, but I do remember that you could do this, and I think you used to do it off a neutral jump too. Which was even more amazing at the time.
I did this, or just some other Karin you know?
I'm pretty sure you did this, and
Huh.
that you learned that it has to be neutral jump in order to do it.
I see.
He has to be at mid-screen or more relative to you on the head stomp itself, and then neutral jump light kick will stop him.
Well, neutral jump light
But
kick has
then
failed every time,
also
but neutral light
remembers-
punch is working every time as well. From at
Right,
least this
because
position.
that was what you learned. If he's close, you have to hit light punch, and if he's far, I think you have to hit light kick. But I don't absolutely remember.
Yeah. Well, I'll try the light punch a
Because I
few
know that
times
the
from
light
far
punch
and
has
see.
some problem from far away that I'm not remembering immediately.
The light, which one, punch? It probably just goes too high. I'm gonna turn on my critical gauge so I can push him back across the screen more easily. So it's actually that if I react too quickly, it causes trouble. But if I delay it a little bit, then this becomes almost universal. That might be his timing, though, so I might have to ask you or Vine to attack me a little more realistically. Uh-oh, you've gotten crackly.
Aha, that explains a lot.
No, it's only just for that moment.
But it does have a strong indication that it's the controller that causes it.
I see. Oh, it's jump back!
Ah,
It just doesn't look like it, because the jump back
yeah,
is
probably
only
this
like
one.
a tiny bit. But you can see me drifting there. After the hit more so. Yeah, so jump back light kick actually is relatively strong against this. I don't think I have that written down, so I think I will be doing the writing down of that. It's better than EX or Senha. Alright, let's see if it works farther out. Yes, I think this is going to work from whatever range I feel like. And if it's farther out, I just have more time to do it in.
Okay.
Cross the screen, please. Oh, I guess I could just Seppo under him.
Ah, there we go. I did remember seeing that. That in the corner, when you are cornered and you attempt it, because there is no back to go, that's when the light punch is required, and that's what I was remembering.
Ah, so yes. But the question becomes as well, if he's farther away, is that still true? Yes, yes it is. Okay.
And therefore now you have anti-head stomp attack for Bison. If you're in the corner,
Indeed.
jump light punch. If you're not in the corner, jump back light kick.
Uh-huh.
The jump back light punch may also work other places, but you can't be as sure of it, and therefore that's the reason for knowing both things.
And actually the light punch needs to be, I think, slightly faster than the light kick. In neutral, anyway. Oh wait,
I
no,
think
jump
part of
back
the other
seems
reason-
to work either way. Let's experiment with
No,
this later.
I'm pretty sure that part of the reason that we did not suggest that you use a light punch is because it messes you up when he does Devil Reverse.
Ah, I don't have a reverse programmed. What is the input for that? Let me stomp it into one of these.
You just need to change it so that when he's in the air that you press punches.
Okay, so...
I don't know which one to say to change, but probably not the EX one, whichever it was.
I don't know which one the X one is, so let's fight him a little bit. And turn the bar back on. Three is EX, okay. So I'll change 5. Boop. 5. Alright, so this is down block, up kick, punch. Oh, huh, okay. Should I use any particular buttons for this?
It depends heavily on the character. I would say to use the... I don't think the stomp matters as much, but try medium kick to go up and light punch to come down.
Alright, medium kick. Up, light punch down. Was that too early, I think? Or can I start it when he's really high in the air?
You can start it when he's really high in the air. It's easier to do it for that. To get the idea you want, it's mostly better to just...
Alright,
because
well then have a
if
look
you
at this.
if you don't wait until he gets decently high up, then it's too easy to distinguish from other things.
I meant I was expecting to wait until he came back down some far. But I guess since I'm trying to intercept him in the air,
There's
it
definitely...
doesn't matter.
And in fact, does it even work if you do that? Yeah, it does, but it's kind of hard, so don't do that. Leave it as is, where he will flip out of it randomly.
Well, in the corner it's certainly a thing.
Yeah, but
The
the
light
corner is not
punch.
what we were worried about.
So now we just change to the next set. Yeah, the, oh, jeez. Oops. Gotta actually go up. No, I think they lose
Because
me
it
about the
mentally
same amount of space.
it mentally changes when you hit the button, especially if he does it earlier. I think he does have to do the Devil Reverse earlier in order for it to work properly.
Should I be doing it on the way up?
Probably. Just
Okay.
mash it.
Alright, I can do that. That was interesting. Might be what we want. I'll give you time to view that.
Interestingly, he does seem to have a variable timing for it now. But it's actually not well known that you really don't have to wait for him to go up into the air at all. So you could try that.
Alright, shall we record it with that then?
It's not very commonly known that you can basically start mashing that the moment you hit the up and kick, and different things will happen as a result.
There we go. Now I see one. Alright. That is very close to the ground. I'm going to have a great deal of trouble with it. First of all, you go in. Actually, the corner is over this way, so proceed. Alright, well, EX beats my light punch, which is probably not too surprising.
ES should probably beat all of them as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, but it's EX, so we don't care. That seems to work quite well, actually. But I bet I have a little more time to react with the light kick, so let's find out. That failed.
I'm sure it will all lead into many interesting things. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that their quote-unquote randomizer is still quite broken.
Yeah. Well, it looks like that I'm going to just write down both of them with Light Punch being possibly slightly more promising as a jump back, and Light Kick possibly working in neutral as well, and then figure the rest out later. So, with that I think we shall end our stream, and thank you for watching, everyone. See you around perhaps tomorrow for some bot demonstrations. Have a good evening.